Peter McKinney and his great deck of his own, Grixis Improvise. All right. And this board, yeah. All right, a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so this is a mess. On Brennan's side, 24 life. He's got a Minister of Inquiries, 2 Champion of Wits, an Eternalized Walking Ballista, an Eternalized Champion of Wits, and 2 Eternalized Angel Inventions. And you'd say, how is this game possibly still going?
So you know when somebody that doesn't play Magic or doesn't really play Magic walks up to your match and says, who's winning? I like to point them to this game. As if anybody can answer that
Herald
question.
of Anguish. He's got, oh my goodness, this is just too much. There's so much going on here. Hostage Taker Eternalized, Herald of Anguish, Maverick Thopterus, 2 Contraband Kingpins. And remember, some of these cards, like this, you might wonder whether or not Hostage Taker or Seeker's Squire are in Peter's deck. They're not. They're not. Reason being here is this other threat, Herald of Anguish, which we see now as it blocks an Angel of Invention, it looks like. There is a lot going on here, so we'll catch you up on the next one here. So Herald of Anguish doesn't actually get him a card back. So this flying 5/5, it being his end step, each opponent discards a card. He can sacrifice an artifact to shrink down a creature. How does he have Brennan's cards in play? Yeah, and it's possible he's got these eternalized versions, this Hostage Taker and the Seeker Squire. I think the way they're in play, notice they're all eternalized. There is a Scarab God in Peter's deck list. I assume at some point this game he had cast Scarab God and had gotten some of Brennan's creatures. The Scarab God appears to be gone right now.
It could be anywhere. Could be in his hand, could be in his graveyard. Who knows?
There's a lot going on. And this is an interesting deck indeed. So, Contraband Kingpin blocks Champion of Wits. The 5/5 Walking Ballista looks like it's going to trade with the Seeker's Squire. Kingpin, yeah, hits the graveyard. Peter down to 7. Make that 8. We'll correct there.
It looks like Brennan's lining up for a Hostage Taker here.
Okay.
With that combat resolved, I think it's clear that Brennan is ahead now.
Hostage Taker takes the Herald of Anguish from Peter. I mean, Godfarer's Gift is a very powerful card if you want to try to take the game to turn 20.
Yes.
And that's what's going to happen. Game 1 goes to Brennan DeCandio. We're going to have game 2. Boy, there's a lot going on in this matchup. That was... It looks like we came as Brennan had already taken control of the game. 23 minutes left. So, okay, Brian, tell me a little bit about the Grixis Improvised deck. What's it doing in the main? And then we'll talk a bit about the sideboard.
Yeah, so the main deck, it's very much a Herald of Anguish kind of deck. It has 4 copies of that, 4 Maverick Thopterus, Contraband Kingpin, just all these cards that play kind of with lower mana cost artifacts to kind of go off. You see Renegade Map, Cogworker's Puzzle Knot, that kind of stuff. Metallic Rebuke, really on theme here. It's kind of this mid-rangey artifact deck.
Tezzeret, I'd assume?
Tezzeret, yep, we got 3 copies of that one.
All right. I like that card.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of this improvised deck. You can use Tezzeret as a removal spell, also to generate some additional mana with this kind of deck. So it's really just kind of this Grixis mid-range deck. You want to keep your opponent off the table with your Metallic Rebukes and just use Herald of Anguish to beat them up. The issue here is that Brennan's also kind of a mid-range deck, except he has just insane inevitability in these kinds of mid-range matchups. Godfarer's Gift is just a lot more powerful than anything that Peter's bringing to the table, so he has to fight that fight very aggressively.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw there, it looked like both decks kind of mid-ranged, and then Brennan went bigger, and then eventually won because his cards did bigger, more powerful things, Godfarer's Gift particularly. So when you look at the decks, okay, yes, he needs to counter those cards if he can. Anything he can do out of the sideboard to maybe help him with this?
There is 1 Abrade, arguably a little light there. 4 copies of Negate. So those ones are reasonable in fighting that front. Not as good as the Abrade. Yeah, really not too much that's excellent in the matchup, to be entirely honest. You'd like to see more Abrades once you get this pairing. But, yeah. that and Negate, really. And Negate's really only okay against DeCandio's deck.
Yeah, it's... I mean, Negate, I guess it does... If the card you're worried about is specifically God Pharaoh's Gift, it does do... It's pretty good there. What about Sorceress Spyglass? You could name the... You can stop him from finding it.
Gate to
the
the
gate
afterlife.
to the afterlife. Yeah.
Sure, that's an option. And I will say that, that because this deck has all these top-end improvised spells and Tezzeret the Schemer, just having that as an artifact on the battlefield is fine.
Yeah, you can play that name Gate to the Afterlife. Then Brennan only has 2 God Pharaoh's Gifts. They cost 7. You got some time.
Yeah. That is reasonable.
He has those on the sideboard. On Brennan's side, his sideboard, he's got 4 Duress, 3 Negate to start things. Against a deck that's doing this, I'm probably just going to play those and take his cards. Maybe just, I don't know if Brennan needs cards as many of these like smaller creatures. Walking Ballista may not be necessary.
A lot of the spells here are pretty low impact. I don't even know if I'm in the Negate, but the Scarab God seems nice. Just another strong mid-range thing.
Yeah, 2 copies of it actually in Brennan's sideboard. That seems great. Cataclysmic Gearhulk actually might be good here as well. If the board seemed awfully cluttered at the end there.
Yeah, it'd be a good thing for the middle of the game.
All right, so looks like we have Sentinel Totem to start the game here for Peter McKinney.
1 copy in the main deck. This one's fine, though it's not hard for Brennan to just get more creatures in his graveyard as the game progresses.
Yeah, and Brennan might think this is a sideboard card. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1, and then it's a Termod script.
Strictly different Relic of Progenitus.
Strictly different. Thank you.
It is all cards from all graveyards.
Contraband Kingpin is going to be the next play. I think more importantly, it turns on Spire of Industry for Peter and allows him to cast the Kingpin. Brennan will Fatal push it away. Has kept in some amount of removal. Interestingly, I'm actually kind of surprised to see that in here. The only cards that get hit by Fatal Push are 3 Contraband Kingpins and I suppose Walking Ballista and 1. There's 5 targets possible and only 2 of them, and 2 of them need Revolt. Prophetic Prism for Peter. I believe he misses his land drop anyway. Here's Gate to the Afterlife, and that'll be Metallic Rebuked. Actually, no, did not miss the land. So counterspell on the first gate, that's important.
Yes.
And let's see what Peter does here. It looks like another Kingpin in hand. He has a Herald of Anguish.
I think a Maverick Thopterist.
I'll take that one. So we get Maverick Thopterist. Impress cards. Brennan was tapped down. It's going to bring 2 servos along with it.
This is a card that's very powerful against just a straight control deck that's trying to 1-for-1, but those decks don't really exist in this format.
Correct myself, 2 Thopters. Not just servos. They put wings on those servos.
It applies a reasonable amount of pressure. Not a huge mana investment. You do get 4 power worth of creatures.
Well, it nicely builds him up toward Herald of Anguish as well, and we're going to see him make that play. Here's the Herald of Anguish, checking Brennan on a counterspell. He's ramped into that card very well, and goes for a swing, but Vrasa's Contempt from the sideboard will take care of the Herald of Anguish. And Brennan cracks, yes, that is exiled. And we'll see the Scarab God from Brennan. So really, Brennan has geared up for a mid-range fight here. Instead of any synergies, just he's a lot of removal and then some power 5s.
Brennan would prefer that the Contempt had put that Herald in the graveyard, though that is, of course, exiled. Scarab God's still pretty powerful. The only target currently available is Contraband Kingpin. Notably, it does have lifelink.
Here's another chance, another Herald of Anguish from Peter. He goes and improvises into that one as well.
And Brennan's got an interesting choice here. He does have 2 lands in hand and I believe God Pharaoh's Gift.
Okay.
Might be a little tough to get up to the requisite mana to cast that one.
Well, he's going to go ahead and bring back this Kingpin. And if he scries 1, he's got land 6 in hand. He could make his way to land 7, but more importantly, who cares?
Well, the issue is he has to discard a card every turn.
Yeah, so he has to discard. Also, yeah, I guess due to the Herald of Anguish. Also, there's nothing in his graveyard. Like, the God Pharaoh's Gift eventually will win the game, but not yet.
Yeah. Though just peeling lands off the top, that makes his choices fairly easy here.
Yeah, plays a land, will discard a land. He attacks, Peter goes down to 13. The Eternalized Kingpin is a 4/4. So a significant amount of pressure is being applied by DeCandio.
Oh, with that big flying herald and those 2 Thopters, those are significant. Though he has to be mindful of the lifelink 4/4 in the contraband kingpin.
Well, here is Tezzeret. So Tezzeret the Schemer, played here by Peter, and this could change things a bit. We actually haven't seen this Planeswalker too much in Standard. We'll get that one on screen for you in just a sec.
Yeah.
So he can create not a treasure, it's an Ethereum cell, but basically a treasure for his +1. -2, a creature gets +X/-X, where X is the number of artifacts Peter controls. That number, now 5, as Peter did make a Ethereum cell. And the -7 is an emblem that makes each turn he gets to turn an artifact into a 5/5.
It is a little curious that he didn't use Tezzeret straight away just to kill the contraband kingpin.
Sure as it's a 4/4. Brennan ends up discards the God Pharaoh's Gift. A scry 1 on upkeep for Brennan. You just thought if he killed the Kingpin, I guess it only would put 2 more points of damage in, or you're just thinking he needs that off the board?
It's this lifelinking threat.
Oh, yeah, it does have lifelink.
Yeah. Large lifelink creatures really mess up races.
Well, here's the explanation. It's Fatal Push, and Peter used the Ethereum cell to cast.
Well, that'll do.
All right. Mystery solved. Kingpin stays exiled. Scarab God's attacking, though. Maverick Thopter's going to jump in front of that. That's actually a scary card to put in the graveyard, Ryan, because now Brennan can bring it back with the Scarab God.
Yep. Get a Thopter, a stand 2 Thopters.
And I'm not sure I like giving him that card. It means that he can start blocking the Herald of Anguish. I almost wanted to say let Tezzeret go and just try to race him in the air.
Tezzeret's ultimate is pretty powerful. It takes a little bit to get going, but it can really mess up a game.
So there is still an Ethereum cell. It looks like we have 5 artifacts in play. So Tezzeret's going to go ahead and try to kill that Scarab God. That's going to work. Brennan, before it happens, will eternalize the Maverick Thopterist. And Peter actually can't exile it with his own totem. If he does, he only has 5 artifacts. So if he uses this in response, the Scarab God's not going to die.
Yeah, that would be an awkward exchange. Is that if near Deadlands? Yeah, if near Deadlands in the mana base, though, he could use that to figure it out.
Okay, so
finish it off, rather.
Yeah, gets rid of all graveyards, so no bring back from the Thopterist. And now Scarab God's a 9/1. Here's Herald of Anguish. Can Peter see it, though? He has to realize his if near Deadlands right could kill Scarab God. And I think he missed it. He's going to play Aethersphere Harvester instead. Now,
I suppose the Scarab God with no targets is not terribly threatening.
Yeah, I guess there's no graveyards. Maybe he didn't miss it and just says, hey, this 3-power flyer's better. I could understand that. Champion of Wits, the draw for Brennan. Draw 2, discard 2 is fine, except that he's got no cards, so it's kind of a 2/1. And there looks to be enough attack power in the air.
He can put some card from his deck into his graveyard and reanimate that with the Scarab God.
So mills over Angel of Invention.
That's a good
one.
one.
All right, that'll play. That'll keep him alive for at least 1 more turn. Well, maybe it will. I don't have to count this one out. That Herald of Anguish's ability is no joke here. So Brennan can make 2 blockers. Herald of Anguish sacrifices an artifact to give a creature -2/-2.
Correct.
So if Peter has 6 mana, which he does, actually, no, he can just kill the 2. He can just kill the Angel Invention, regardless of how Brennan sets it up.
Well, that's good for him. The real question is, can either of these players win a 3rd game in time?
Yeah. Scarab God blocked by a Thopter token. Brennan will say go. Yeah, we're in this mid-range spot. Peter's deck, as a mid-range deck, looks like it presents threats faster than Brennan's. So he's got this power spike in the game from like turns 3 through 7. But if he doesn't make a lot with that, if we get to turn 7 and the game's still equal, Brennan should overpower.
Right. And the essential cards that he has access to, and you saw they very likely mattered this game, is just that Metallic Rebuke. Yeah. Hitting that early gate to the afterlife, that's really what his deck is trying to do. His end game is not as powerful, but he has some pretty solid disruption.
All right, so he's going to swing 5. That should be lethal. Here's Angel of Invention. Eternalized as a 4/4. Now, if Peter holds the Fabricate trigger on the stack, he could... Yeah, and this was a mistake. So what he needed to do is hold the Fabricate trigger on the stack, then say, in response, sack an artifact, shrink it, use my Ethereum cell, stack an artifact, shrink it, kill you. It's still going to be okay, right? Brennan can...
He still has... He had that Prism, he has Thopter, he has Aethersphere Harvester, he has Ethereum Cell for his 6th mana.
Yeah, he could have made the play. Now, instead the play he made is Brennan blocked and Peter activated once and killed it, 5/5 beating a 4/4. Brennan gains up to 9. It's a missed play on Peter's side. I don't know that it'll cost him, though. This play is still very good. This plays Contraband Kingpin post-combat.
Yeah, and the Angel is exiled now, so Brennan has to find something else.
Yeah. There's this window, and if you haven't played, I guess, some Limited in Kaladesh, you may not know about this Fabricate window where the creature enters the battlefield, and then a Fabricate trigger goes on the stack, and you actually can, before they choose counters or servos, you can actually just respond. So there's a spot where the Angel was a 4/4.
Yeah. He also just had 6 mana and 3 artifacts.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's just 2 mana to sack, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he could have killed it regardless.
Yeah.
Brennan will mill himself for 3. He didn't hit a creature, so
probably
no
gonna
targets.
seal this up for McKinney then.
Well, he's gonna mill himself again. Let's see what he can find. Hub, land. Okay, the only creature he found in 6 cards was another Minister of Inquiries. And then draws Aether Hub. That's not going to do anything. I guess if he eternalizes more Ministers, he can just keep the ball rolling. I mean, I'm not sure Peter deals 9 next turn.
He has a little more life to play with, that much is true.
Scarab God going to attack Tezzeret. Fair enough. See what Peter's going to do. Let's see, he has some play here. Sacrifices a cell, makes 2 mana, uses Herald of Anguish, sacrifices the cell to shrink Scarab God, activates Aethersphere Harvester. Okay, yeah, 3/5 can block. And that will kill Scarab God. Good play by Peter.
Yep.
Brennan, before Scarab God dies, will eternalize the Minister. Brennan may have just missed that interaction. I mean, it's hard, right? When you feel like your opponent has you dead on board, figuring out, but doesn't see it, figuring out the correct play in that situation can be very difficult because you start having to guess what they're going to see and not see.
Right.
So Brennan might have made the attack being like, yeah, my guy's dead on the attack, but maybe my opponent doesn't know. And then you swing, and Peter knows. You said, oh, well, okay, he knew that one.
And with Brennan just missing on good creatures with those Minister activations, it's unclear that he has an avenue to win this game.
Yeah, and it's going to be 2 swings in the air should do it. 1 swing actually, right? If Peter Cruz Harvester with the Kingpin, and then Kingpin and swing, he has 9 points of damage in the air.
Yep, that tracks.
Okay. He will swing 8 of it, and 9 of it. There we go. That is a lethal attack. We'll go to game 3. You kind of saw Peter going through the works there. He said, okay, 5, stay, okay, and he's like, yes, wait, add the Thopter. This is lethal. Let's do it.
Yep.
Well played then. Peter evens things up with Grixis Improvise. Got to worry about that clock up at the top of the screen. 7 minutes and 30 seconds really remaining here.
Yep. Not a lot of time to play with. These decks both take a little bit of doing to actually close the game.
Yeah, each deck is trying to win the game with a Haymaker. On Peter's side, this Herald of Anguish is mainly his win condition. On Brennan's side, it's God Pharaoh's Gift. These are very expensive spells. They don't have a fast draw that wins before that.
I'd say that McKinney's deck is more capable of stealing fast games.
Absolutely.
Get that set up, just a quick Herald, Metallic Rebuke or 2, stop Brennan from ever being in it.
Yeah. Well, that's what we saw that game, really. Like I kind of mentioned, there's this Peter's deck hits its stride a couple turns before Brennan's. It at the end of the day isn't as powerful. If we go late enough, it'll favor Brennan. How fast can they play it? You still have some quick shuffles and presents for each player. Peter will mulligan to 6. And we're going to go ahead and keep you on the match here, as we know this one's going to be pretty quick as far as the presentations. Now, these players, especially in McKinney's spot where he's 6-1-1, he has very little interest in a draw here.
Yep.
Brennan can likely take a draw, but And knowing Brennan, he's not wouldn't be interested in it.
No. Yeah, draws on this early in a tournament. Pretty unfortunate.
Pretty poor. Keep on 6 for Peter. And we have Minister of Inquiries from Brendan.
The perfects.
Get hit by a fatal push. And how about, he'll try for Seeker Squire. It will explore and put a land into Brennan's hand. Passes back.
I really enjoy just how much this deck is made up of cards that are dubious in your draft deck.
Well, Peter's got the All-Star of Contraband Kingpin, so at least he's not playing dubious cards. The Seeker will attack, Peter will block and gain a life.
What a punt.
Oh, I see why now. We had to attack with a creature so that we can chart the course. Brennan draws 2.
Yeah, no interest in discarding a card just yet.
Brennan's hand's like almost all lands.
Yeah, it looks like lands and another chart of course.
It's like 5 lands. You see Cogworkers, Puzzle Knot. I always like how these improvised decks play the white Puzzle Knot, even though they don't play white.
Ethereum cells.
Ooh. Another land for Brennan. At least one of these, I think, cycles. I'm not entirely sure one of them cycles.
Yeah. I think a Fetid Pool's in the holding.
Okay. He's going to go ahead and chart a course. He draws and discards this time off chart a course. No real reason to keep your cards, not when you have this many lands.
Yeah, also attacking a 1/2 into a 1/1 and a 1/4.
Yeah, not that into that. And Tezzeret is the play from Peter. Now Brennan has an answer. Looks like he has Vraska's Contempt rolled up in his hand. Right now, the card I'm looking for to win, if we go back to our bingo, it's that Vraska's Contempt exiles Vraska. I'm pretty sure Vraska's Contempt exiling Tezzeret is also the same square. So it's I think it counts.
As the self-appointed head bingo judge, I am going to decline. I'm going to rule against that.
Cataclysmic Gearhulk was a pickup off that cycle for Brennan. And actually, he has picked up a couple more things. You know, as God Pharaoh's Gift to go with Vraska's Contempt.
Remember last game when Scarab God was a 9/1?
Yeah.
Still looking for a 10 power
creature.
Gosh,
there was a 9/1, huh? Now, here's a question. If you'd given it +5/-5, would have you counted it?
No. Nah, stuff that's dead to state-based effects don't count.
Okay, you wouldn't have counted it?
Nah.
I think you might have won that judge call if you'd appealed it to the head judge. But if you didn't make the judge call, you can't have it.
I can be a little aloof sometimes, but I'm not about to appeal to myself.
Prophetic Prism is the play for Peter. Now, the Gearhulk actually didn't really have any effect other than making a 4/5 for Brennan. Peter only sacrificed an artifact to it, and that artifact was Cogworker's Puzzle Knot. Which,
okay.
Well, I guess he also sacrificed a creature, a servo, but okay, it didn't do much.
Cataclysmic Gearhulk continues its streak of being underwhelming.
Yeah, killed 2 things, and then not really. Vraska's Contempt will hit the Tezzeret. And Peter says, no thank you, Metallic Rebuke.
Yikes.
Now we have to start reading, let's go back to that Tezzeret Ultimate. You talked about being able to win a game quickly, right?
Yes.
Well, there's 7 counters on the Tezzeret. Yeah, we could make that emblem. At the beginning of combat, target creature becomes artifact becomes a 5/5 forever. I like it.
Yep, so this is just an emblem, so that just hangs out.
You can pull the trigger on it, and Peter is going to. So, can Brennan, with Godfair's Gift, overpower a Tezzeret emblem? That's going to be our question here.
Yeah, I should have had Tezzeret emblem on these bingo
cards. I have
cards.
Vraska Ultimates, too, on this. I think they both count.
I have Chandra emblem and Gideon emblem. should just put Planeswalker emblem.
And we see Walking Ballista.
That's a good one to make a base 5/5
in
the next turn.
Scrying off Contraband Kingpin, keeps 1 on top. When goes to combat, he gets to make something a 5/5. It'll be Prophetic Prism. Let's do it. I think just swings. Yeah, let's just get it in there. It does die to a double block.
And that's fine.
That's fine.
That's going to happen to something he's doing eventually anyway. And the Ballista can clean up if he so desires as well. Actually, the Ballista won't be able to because it's a 1/2 there.
So the danger here is if Brennan has a creature die like this Gearhulk, okay, Brennan has Godpharaoh's Gift in hand and an untapped land. the beginning of combat, he can just eternalize the Gear Hulk again.
It'll be a little bit better this time.
Yeah, God Pharaoh's Gift is going to be the play. Does Peter have the Metallic Rebuke? Nobody has the Negate. It was his last card in hand, and that's huge.
That'll do.
Now, he had to use an Ethereum Cell to cast it. So I was going to say he's out of artifacts, but then remember he scryed to the top on Kingpin. It makes good sense. It was Maverick Thopterist that he'd made.
Full retail.
Yeah.
No discounts.
But into that because this is 2 more targets for the Tezzeret emblem. Goes to combat. Tezzeret emblem targeting Walking Ballista, so it's a 5/5 with 2 1/1 counters. Let's swing for 7. I don't believe Peter scryed off those Thopters. I don't think it matters. He's going to swing in for 7. Brennan down to 13.
Yeah, base 5/5 Triskelion. Pretty
Very
powerful.
Nice. Creature count in Brennan's graveyard is only 2. He does have a copy of Gate to the Afterlife here, but that's not great.
That'll take
2
some
lands
work.
in hand. Go back to Peter McKinney. We still have, it looks like time's going to be called during Peter's turn.
It shouldn't be difficult to close this even in turns.
I hope not.
Make those Thopters into 5/5s.
And that is time. Peter's turns are turns this one, turns 0, 2, and 4. Brennan has turns 1, 3, and 5. But for Peter McKinney's Grixis improvised deck, this is looking like it's going to be a win.
Now, what I think here McKinney should do is, before the game is over, add 3 more +1/+1 counters to his Walking Ballista.
Yeah, you know, for good measure.
Yeah.
He is just going to swing the Thopter, does not swing Walking Ballista. I actually like this attack. What he's trying, I think what he's trying to do is trying to do at all costs avoid loading up for that Gate to the Afterlife. And he's got some room to work with.
Yep.
This is, it looks like a dubious attack, but I think it's really good.
He has lethal in the air next turn. You know, there's no reason to put that creature in the graveyard. It not
Yeah.
only does it push you closer to activating the gate, but you also get the looting activation if that creature dies.
Right, what if Brennan activates the gate and gets back Cataclysmic Gear Hulk? That's how Peter loses.
Mhm.
That was a really good attack.
Honestly, just the Gear Hulk itself, Peter can probably beat. It like
Yeah.
needs to be Gear Hulk plus something.
Right. I mean, but you're still starting down a chain that
Right.
could possibly make you lose, and just avoiding that in its entirety is the right way to go.
Yep.
So, good play. Brennan on turn 1. He's drawn, trying to figure out if he can survive one more turn. Here's Fatal Push. Oh, Brennan is throwing a Hail Mary out. He's Fatal Pushing his own creature, his own Seeker Squire.
Yep.
And he discards. That's going to be the game. And the match, Peter McKinney with the win, improves to 7-1-1, and he makes his way to day 2.